You're listening to Bigfoot Society, and I'm Jeremiah Byron. Tonight's story doesn't come from the Pacific Northwest or even the mountains of Appalachia. It comes from the quiet farm fields northeast of Columbus, Ohio, where a mother and daughter found something watching them from across the field. It started with a strange figure behind the wild rose bushes, then came the mimicry, the silent woods, and the terrified dog, and the moment when everything they thought they knew about their land changed forever. This isn't a story about believing in Bigfoot, it's a story about what happens when it starts believing in you. And this is a story of Judy and Grace and what was waiting in the bend of the river. So stay with us. All right, Bigfoot Society, we've got the privilege of talking to Judy and Grace today. Judy and Grace, they're on a farm that is northeast of Columbus, Ohio. They've been having some interesting activity happen over the years. We have Judy is the mother, Grace is the daughter, just for context as well. But welcome to both of you, and thanks for being on the show today.
Yeah, thank you.
Oh, thank you so much. It's quite an honor.
Awesome. And Judy, I want to make sure that we have the time to get through this whole account. So I'm going to go ahead and pass things over to you.
Well, first, I just have to start by saying, I have always believed in Bigfoot my whole life, but never in my wildest dreams would I ever have thought that I might actually have an experience someday. I believe in this kind of thing, but I'm also extremely skeptical, so I don't just jump in and believe just anything. So when my daughter had her first sighting, I'm absolutely, looking back, I'm horrified to know that I discounted her. Completely discounted her experiences. I shocked myself that I was so skeptical. And what ends up happening is that I thought in her experience or her sighting, the first one, that it was a bear. And I got myself completely convinced that it was a bear, but it definitely wasn't. So Grace will explain her two sightings.
So the first sighting, I was probably 11 years old, so a few years ago. For context, I'm 20, about to be 21 in July, and I was back at our river. We have a river running through some woods of ours in our backyard, and my cousin and one of my close friends, we were back at the river like we normally do. I used to swim in the river all the time when I was growing up. And I never really felt weird back there. And that's why just the three of us went by ourselves, because we were comfortable going back there. And after a while of us playing in the water, skipping a few rocks, we started to feel a little bit weird. We kind of felt like we were being watched. And, we can tell when we're being watched. So we knew something was up. So we were like, okay, let's just head back to the house, let's just get some food or whatever. And when we were walking back, it's probably about, a 5-minute walk back to the house from the river?
Probably 10,
15 minutes back to the house on our walk. We turned back because we really felt like we were being watched. And that's when we saw a kind of ashy-brown figure standing at the tree line. So there's a field and then trees and then the river. So there was, like I had said, an ashy brown figure standing just watching us, very still, didn't move, could see that there was no real distinction of shoulders and head. It kind of just all, blended in together. So it was a very thick neck. And we all just we stood there for, I don't know, a few seconds, maybe enough time to look at each other being like, do you see that? Agreeing, yes, we all see that. And then running back like we just saw a ghost because, we just saw Bigfoot. Or, we didn't come to find that out later. But it was ashy brown. And then just recently, just this past summer, we kind of measured the weeds that it was standing behind because we could only see from the chest up. And so we measured those bushes about what would you say,
5.5, 6 feet high. They're wild rose bushes.
Yeah.
All back there.
So it would have had to have been up to 9 feet tall. On the scale that the bushes are, it would have had to have been 9 foot tall because we saw it from the chest up. And we came back, we were all like, pale as all can be because what we just saw. And then a few years later, so when I was roughly 14 or 15 years old, I was with a different friend. And we were, again, back at the river at a different place. We were back kind of farther, deeper into the river. And we were just skipping rocks, swimming in the river. And then we heard chickens when we were back there. And I was like, we both looked at each other. We were like, that's weird. I don't know of any chickens. It's been my whole life that I've lived here. I've never heard chickens back there. And so we kind of were like, okay, that's a little weird. Maybe our neighbors got chickens or whatever. Come to find out there are no chickens near us. And then I started to feel weird again. And I wasn't telling my friend anything because I was like, I don't want to scare her. And then all of a sudden I really felt something off. And then the woods went quiet. And I, every summer, went back to the woods, never heard the woods go silent. There was not a cricket, not a frog, not a bird, nothing. And then, so after I felt that, I was like, that's really weird. So I started to scope the area. And there's a ridge on the other side of the river where we were standing. So it was directly across from where I was standing. Started to scope that cliffside. And there was a little opening of trees where I saw this dark figure, glide across the opening of the trees. It was hunched over. It was on 2 feet, so it was running. And it looked very large. It had its arms curled up close to its chest, looking like it was holding something. I didn't see enough detail to see if it was actually holding something, but it was just gliding across. I didn't hear its footprints. It didn't make any noise in the trees, didn't make any sort of crunching on twigs. And I've seen deer go past. I've seen other animals, kind of coyote running across, and they make sound. I know what the wildlife in our backyard looks like. It did not look like any of those. It was too big to be a human. And, me and my mom tried to recreate what it looked like, or I tried to recreate what it looked like. And it was too hunched over. Its torso was too horizontal for a person to be able to recreate what it looked like at the speed it was running and the smoothness of its run. And it wasn't a bear because it was too slim to be a bear, too fast, too smooth to be a bear because, when bears are walking, they're kind of meandering, kind of, lugging around. And then when they're running, there's a distinct way they run. Their, shoulders raise and then their hind raises after they plant their first 2 feet. And it wasn't doing that. It was running on 2 legs. And then that's when I was like, told my friend, I just saw something. We got to get out of here. So we ran back to the house. And that's when I told my mom that I just saw somebody back there. And she first thought it was a bear. So
yeah, I just completely poo-pooed it, thinking, yeah, whatever. And then I thought I saw a footprint that my stomach sank because it looked like a human print, but it was then a print on top of a print. And so I start doing all this research saying, we really don't have bears around here, but it's possible. There are a couple bears-ish. And so I was just certain, okay, well, it was a bear. She saw a black bear. And then I started looking up the whole chicken thing didn't make sense. We are in more than 100 acre farm. And then there's fields around that. So we are not anywhere close to anyone. Even if they did have chickens, we couldn't hear it. And so I thought, wow, well, what's that? Is that just I don't know. I looked it up, and I guess sometimes bear cubs can sound like that. So I thought, there it is. The more we've experienced, the less I think that's the case. My son and his friend were back at the river then around the same time. He would have been probably 12 at the time. And they were back there fishing, and they came charging back, and his friend said, there's an orange man back there. So, of course, I poo-poo it, and I'm thinking, okay, a hunter wearing those bright orange vests. But my son's friend hunts, and he would have known that. He would have said it was a hunter's vest. Mm-hmm. So he said there was an orange man. So that's that. The other thing that I wanted to say before I get to my experiences is that all of these things that Grace experienced and that I experienced, we had no idea they had anything to do with Bigfoot. Yeah. So it's not like we were trying to make anything fit. We came to that realization afterwards. And the chickens, by the way, I was listening to one of your podcasts just last night. I listened to all of them, and it was one of them. And she talked about how she heard chickens as well, kind of mimicking chickens. Mm-hmm. So for mine started in October of 2021. And I kept hearing tree knocks back there. And at first I didn't know what that was. And then we went to a Bigfoot talk at our local library, and he talked about Mark DeWorth, and he talked about tree knocks, and all of a sudden we just were stunned. That's probably what that was. And I did send you a video where one of them I captured on video. I'm unfortunately kind of saying a word over it, which makes me mad, but I didn't know it was going to happen. The thing then that really got me before my experiences started is I would walk. We've got a German Shepherd, and she would go back. We would go every day back in the woods for our walk, and she loved it. She ran, she jumped. This was the greatest time in the world. And all of a sudden, she would get antsy back there, and she would be kind of pointing, looking at a particular place. And finally, she got to the point where she would stop before we even got back into the woods. And then she would stand in front of me and not let me go any further. So I'd try to get her back there, and she wouldn't go. So we'd turn around and she'd run back. Well, every time we'd go on a walk, she would quit closer and closer to the house. I mean, we're still, probably half a mile from the house, but she wouldn't make it any further each time. And it would get closer and closer where she'd turn around. And finally she was just like, hey, you're on your own, honey. I'm going back. And she wouldn't even block me. And I got to where I thought, okay, I'm going to trick her. And we walked another direction around one of our fields. And then we kind of went to the side. And I got her going. She was fine. And the minute she rounded where that corner was and she could see the woods, back she went. It got so bad she would try to dig under our deck to hide before I could get. Obviously, she would beat me back to the door. And it would get so bad she would not go on a walk. She wouldn't even go around the barn to even think about going on a walk. And it got to the point where I couldn't even get her to go outside. She was so absolutely terrified. So this is what then led me to contacting an animal communicator. And I was not thinking Bigfoot at all about this, but a friend of mine had used this animal communicator. And again, I believe in mediums, I believe in all that, but I'm just very skeptical because I don't know if these people are actually good at it, right? So I wasn't thinking much. I was just wanting to know what was in Abby's mind so that I could get her to go on these walks again with me. And that's all I said to the man. And I told him that she was a German Shepherd and that she wouldn't go back there. And he starts saying, he said, well, she's smelling something noxious. Now, none of us have ever smelled anything. Grace said she didn't smell anything with her sightings. But he says something really bad, like dead animal poo, everything bad, noxious. And then he was asking, he says, I don't know, I'm trying to figure this out. Do you have like a gas line or something through your property? And I said, well, yeah, but not anywhere close to that. We've never smelled that. So he kept going. And then he says, I'm seeing, of course, he's saying that he's getting this from Abby, but he says, I'm seeing really black fur, really, really long, dark fur. And he says, and if I see fur like that, it means it's an animal that's alive. So something is back there. And he says, longest fur. And he said that, I wrote this down. He says, it's like a bear, but not a bear. And then he kept saying, I didn't think we had bear here in Ohio, but it's a bear, but it's not a bear. It's bigger than a bear. And I finally just spoke up. I said, might it be a Bigfoot? And he said, yes, that's what I was thinking. He says, but I wasn't going to say it. I was going to make you say it. So he says, I didn't even think there were Bigfoot in Ohio, and completely new to him. But he says that that's what she's terrified about. And he said, it could be miles away that she's smelling. It was then soon after that I heard my first howl. And I sent you a map of our farm, and there are 3 arrows in it. The lowest arrow, the one down furthest on the picture, is where I found the tree structures. The next one up to it, like a little north east of that arrow, is another arrow. That's where I heard this howl come from. And it was probably 1 a.m. I had taken Abby out, still night, and I heard one howl. And at this point, I had no idea what the Ohio howl was. Never heard it. And I came back in the house thinking, what the heck was that? It wasn't a coyote. I know coyotes, and when they get going, they get going. And it's terrifying because the whole pack gets going. This was one single creature, one howl, and I recorded myself doing it. It kind of went up and then down. And then that's when I started looking it up, and I heard the Ohio howl, and my spine just tingled. That's exactly what I heard. So then it was a couple weeks after that, I was woken up by these howls, and they were at the northern part. So at the top part of that picture, there's an arrow. That's where I heard the next set, and it was about 3 a.m. It was the same Ohio howl with maybe a 15-second interval in between each one. I heard maybe 4 or 5 of them, and by the time I got up to get my phone out to go to the front door to record this, they stopped. So that was kind of a bummer. So then it's the tree structures. So I decide, well, that's where I had heard this howl. So on one of my walks, I went back in the woods that way. And that's where I saw these, they were just like branches bent over. There were 2 main arches. And I thought they stuck out like a sore thumb because everything is just straight. The trees don't do that back there. And when I was looking at them closer, it wasn't like they were woven, but kind of, this wasn't just a natural fall, because the branch would be on one side and then it would kind of curve around and it would hook the tree in. Anyway, and I just thought that is so bizarre. And so then soon after that, my brother, who wanted to see this, he just could not understand how people would say, I feel like somebody's watching me. He says, I don't understand that. He completely believes in this, but wanted to see it for himself. We went back to the river. He didn't feel anything. We went back to where those tree structures were. He got in there and he says, we got to get out of here. He just felt like we needed to get out. I had never felt that, but he did. Maybe it was because he was a man. And then I went back and I had sent you another picture where I looked up and there was a pelt of a raccoon, like flat. It wasn't a dead raccoon. It was the pelt of one, and it was perfectly half hanging over a branch way up in the tree. And I thought, how the heck did that get up there? I look up in the trees all the time. I'm a tree fanatic, and I've never seen anything like that. The branch was too thin for an actual raccoon to die up there, half over the branch. It wouldn't have held it up. And it was just sitting up there. And I think maybe 2 days later, I went back and it was gone. It was not on the ground. It was nowhere to be found. So, and now I've gone back since then, and none of those tree structures are there because all of those branches dried up and broke off, and they're just down on the ground now. So what we saw was obviously freshly done. So those are the things that we've experienced. We just think that, we've got 100+ acre farm. We've got fields all around us. We have 35 acres of woods. And we've got this river, a small river, but it's a river that flows through our property, through the woods, and it meanders. And I've also heard on one of your podcasts somebody saying that bends in the river or something that they congregate around. Well, we've got probably 5 bends around the river.
That's very, very true. Yep.
Yeah, and we've got this huge ridge. I don't know. I'm terrible with distances and heights, but that ridge is 100 feet probably. Yeah. It's huge. The one that Grace saw one on top of. So we've got all kinds of deer, turkey, everything. So it would be a good place to find one. But I don't know, and I'm not saying what I experienced was, but now I completely believe Grace, what she saw. And now I just go back there, and I've also heard maybe speaking in an indigenous language they like. So I go back there and say, I'm your friend. And I say it in Cherokee. And thank you for letting us share these woods. We're not trying to do anything. So
wait, so you're saying words in Cherokee to them and phrases?
Yes, just I am your friend, Sio Una Li'i, and I hope that's correct. If anybody listening, I just looked it up.
Are there any responses after you do things like that?
No, I've never heard anything. No,
that's really interesting.
I just say it every single time I walk back and cross that tree line into the woods, just to say, I'm just here. Thank you for letting us share these woods, and I'm your friend, and I will leave you in peace. And I don't know. We don't think they're actually living back there now. We've had nothing in the last 2 years.
And Abby, our dog, can go back there now.
Abby can go back there now. But we definitely think they were back there. They were passing through.
Absolutely.
And then also the time that I heard those howls, we were driving into the next little town over, and lo and behold, got right behind a Jeep that was a Bigfoot researcher Jeep. And I remember commenting, saying, see, somebody else is experiencing something. And I have no idea what that was. I haven't looked it up on the BFRO or anything like that, but it just seems very odd. And we have our small little library up here has had a number of Bigfoot talks, and the room is packed. It's the only time the room is packed at the library, and every single person has had an experience around here.
Yeah, I'm not surprised at all. I mean, off air, you told me a little bit more about the area, which we do have to, keep things a little bit hidden for privacy. But it is, looking at the area in the river orientation, like you were mentioning, it is really perfect. It's crazy. Like the way that the river goes and the ridges and stuff, it's nuts. It's like I've seen a lot of, you talk about the curves and the bends, and it's just like, it's a really good place. No doubt about it. I got a few questions for Grace, if now would be a good time. So I'm looking at the photo or the iPad drawings that you sent over that you did of both of your encounters. So did you use the two different ones that you saw? They were definitely different colors then, because it looks like you've got the ashy-brown, but then the one up on across the river is a darker brown, right?
Yes.
Black.
Okay. Gotcha. Very interesting. How far away from the one where you had the face-to-face encounter were you?
Oh, God, 50 feet?
50 feet, yeah.
Wow,
Something. I'm not very distance. I don't
know exactly where you were standing, but where that bend is and where she pointed out it was standing, 50, 100 feet. Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, that's pretty close. I mean, when you're talking feet, were you able to notice any details about how it looked at all besides color?
I wasn't really able to see. I already have pretty bad eyesight, but I was able to see like the darkness of the face, like around the eye area. It was pretty dark, and the mouth and nose area, it was a darker color than the rest of its body.
Okay, that's very interesting.
And she said it was just standing.
Yeah, it was just standing
still.
Okay, got it. Did you see anything about it that would make you lean more towards this looked more human, or this looked more ape-like, or was it just completely different?
I mean, it obviously wasn't a person, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
And it looked too upright to be like an ape. So it was really, I had never seen anything like it before. You know, my mom used to work with chimpanzees, and I've seen a bunch of different types of apes. Didn't look like any of those. It was just totally different.
Gotcha.
And no ears.
If we need to, we can take out that thing about your employment too. That's up to you.
Employment?
How you used to work with apes?
Oh, that wasn't employment. No.
Oh, okay.
That's just, I did it on the side.
Oh,
Yep.
fun.
Yeah.
Okay, that's awesome. Just like volunteer work. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Very good. This is on the side as well, but have you guys ever, well, I'm just going to say you should look up the BFRO reports for your county. Have you done that?
I had several years ago, but I haven't lately, and I should have done that before.
There's one where it's because you're in Licking, right?
Yes.
Yeah, there's one where like people see something that looked like a baboon back in '84, which is kind of weird, but
Interesting.
Very weird.
The Bigfoot researcher that came and spoke at the library, the first one, and he's come back a couple times. He has talked about sightings south of us, north of us, east of us. I mean, all around us.
Are you talking about Mark DeWorth?
Yes.
And Mark is a really, really smart guy, and he is like one of the top guys for Ohio. So that's awesome that you were able to hear him talk.
I think the baboon one was in Denison University.
Okay.
It was in, he said it was they've got like not an arboretum, but they've got a huge wooded area for classes and stuff. And it was one of the maintenance guys said he saw him up in the trees.
Oh, that's awesome. Have you ever reached out to see if anyone could come out to your property to take a look around that would be a researcher?
I said something to Mark DeWorth when he came back, and he said that, our place sounds like it would be a good spot. And he said, I'd have to see the stuff, but I don't think he was able to do it that night. And he hasn't been back in this area. We also talked to Doug Waller. He came and spoke. He had interviewed Grace about the sightings. By that point, I hadn't had my experiences, so it was all just Grace.
Before, because Grace's stuff was that it kind of kicked it off. Right before that, was there any like really traumatic experience that happened?
No, and that's something that I was going to point out before, or when I was talking, is I never drank alcohol when I was a kid, never smoked, never did drugs, very by the rule book, didn't have any traumatic experiences. I don't have schizophrenia, so it's truly, because I have a friend who's very skeptical, and his biggest thing was, well, did you hallucinate it? And I'm like, no, there's nothing to have made me hallucinate. Didn't have any traumatic experiences, wasn't on any drugs, didn't have a big hangover. So yeah.
And she's never done anything like this before.
Yeah.
Since.
Right.
I mean, so it's
Right.
not like she sees creatures in the woods.
And to kind of clarify what I meant there, so just a pattern that I've found over the years is that a lot of witnesses will have had something traumatic happen in their lives, and then they'll have a sighting. And so when I'm talking about like traumatic events, it could be something like you lost
like a friend dying. I remember
a friend
that
dying,
yep.
or you've got divorced, or something like really like you lost something. And sometimes when stuff like that happens, you know, I think there could be some like chemical signal that's thrown out there, but it's just something I've kind of been looking into. But so nothing like that at all.
No, okay. I don't remember.
I also remember Mark DeWorth talking about how they're seem to be interested in kids. So I could see very much that if Grace was back there with her friends, you know, they were probably as much on display as, you know, any animal in the zoo. And so they probably have been watching. So.
Oh, absolutely. And there was an individual that had a sighting of one with orange hair. Was that right?
Yes. My son's friend came back and said, saw an orange man back there. And that was so far before it didn't even occur to me that that's what it could be.
Absolutely. And were there any other details that were able to be received from him besides like just orange color to it?
No. Just orange color, and they came charging back up. And this is a big kid. Yeah. And it just killed me. I mean, and I was just sort of laughing, but the more I think about it now, that kid still hunts. And well, he's a man now, but I just thought it would be a hunter, but now putting all these together, it's like, and then there was one other thing that had happened for me is when I was walking, and again, you can see on the map, the path going back to the woods actually runs parallel to the river at one point, like right in the middle. And so I'm walking parallel to this river, and there's trees on both sides. It's all in the woods. And out of the blue, this huge limb came crashing down. Like I could hear it like that all the way down. I've never in my life heard that. It was not windy, never heard it before, never heard it since. And I'm thinking, what was that? Scared me to death. You know, my husband saying, it was probably an animal that got up on there. That'd be a pretty daggone heavy squirrel. And it was right in the middle of the day, so it wouldn't have been a raccoon. I just wonder, you know, again, it's one of those things that just adds to the possibilities, but I don't want to make them try to fit.
Yeah, exactly. It's a tricky thing because I feel when I go out and do stuff, I try to be on the side of like overly skeptical because I don't want to get like blinders on. I mean, I was looking through the pictures you sent, and there's some really interesting like pictures of arches that you sent. Even some of them where they are, it's the scenario where like the tree is arched over and then there's something holding it down, right?
Exactly. Yeah. And that's why I thought it's not necessarily woven. And Grace went back and saw it too. And she's like, this is not natural fall. Where if a tree fell on one of those smaller saplings, it would have just sort of rolled off and bounced up, and it was placed and then like anchored down between the branches. And there were two of them. It just shocked me when I went back there because I'd never seen that. And again, I didn't know those were tree structures. That's another thing you start learning the more you get into this. like, oh my gosh, that fits too.
Yeah, the more you get into this whole deal, you start to get the terminology, and you start to see patterns in people's reports. It's really wild stuff. Have you ever talked to any of your neighbors about if they have similar things happen?
I have not. We really don't have close neighbors anyway. Yeah, so I've never heard of anyone other than the people that were at the library that we're talking about. And one was a police officer. No, she was a bailiff, but she was in full uniform, and she had an experience right around here.
Oh, wow.
It's obvious. Well, and then there are a couple houses that have, the black cutout. And I see a lot of Bigfoot stickers on trucks and cars. And it's like, you don't do that unless you really believe or have had an experience. Now, I can't say that for sure. But I think a lot of people have experienced something.
Mm-hmm.
There's no way it's only you guys on that stretch of river. It's just wild. It's
right.
a really cool area. Now you have like really interesting things happening on your property outside. Nothing weird that's happening inside the house, out of the ordinary, just outside in the woods, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's good.
I mean, yeah, kind of, but more on just the spiritual side, positive spiritual things. But no, we've never had anything like it's come up to the house, I don't think. No, nothing slamming on the house, knocking on the house. Yeah. Now, in the video I had sent you where you can hear, could you hear the tree knock?
Yeah, so because you had said, pay attention after I say this certain sentence, I cranked it up a little bit. Yeah, you can hear it in the background. Yeah, which I thought was great that your microphone actually picked it up.
Oh, yeah. And that's what both Grace and I think, that, you get to questioning yourself. And then I think, oh, did I really hear the tree knocks? Now I'm hearing it, you look it up and you hear it online. And I got that. So I know, yep, I sure did. But when I was back there, the whole thing about the walnuts coming down is at the time I thought they were getting thrown at me. But it could very well be, it was fall, so it could have been just falling out of the trees. But at least I got that knock.
Has there ever been anything out of the ordinary that you found around your house, like it was left, or just something that did not make sense for it to be there?
Not that I know.
And
Okay.
I even, when we saw those tree structures, I took a Twinkie back there one time, an apple to do gifting, and nothing happened. Of course, I didn't keep doing it for months or anything.
Gotcha. So no, like random deer legs left on different parts of the property. Okay, good. Are there a lot of deer on your property though?
Yes.
Okay.
We have a lot, and a lot of turkey. We don't have any farm animals. We used to have 2 goats years ago, 3 goats, but nothing ever happened to them. But that was years before even Grace had her experience. Yeah.
And nothing, I think. So nothing that would, no, like weird communication things ever?
No, other than my brother felt.
That's true.
When he went back to those structures, and he is probably the most educated person I know. And yeah, he just said, it's saying, get out now. And he just turned. And I just sort of felt like that's just weird that I've never felt it. But then again, it does seem like men could be a little more intimidating. Not intimidating. Nothing could intimidate them, but it's just, territorial maybe. I don't know.
No, I think that's an interesting thing because you do hear more than a few times where it's like the males will be messed with.
Yeah,
which is really interesting. Great for you because, you don't have to worry about that. But it's great.
And I think that's why Grace had more than me. She had more of a direct sighting as a younger person and female.
Yeah.
So, and it was always girls back there.
Yeah.
Except for my son and his friend, but they didn't seem to be threatened. I mean, they never said anything happened. I think they just saw something back there. Scared the bejeebies out of them.
Is there anything else that is reported weird about this part of Ohio besides Bigfoot things? Is maybe like folklore wise or anything like that?
Oh, I'm so glad you said that. Geez, I had it on my list. There is there's a folklore that said that there were giants here and that there were, a grave of 2 or 3 giants that was found. Now, the bones aren't there anymore, and it's just one of those things like, the early settlers of our little village had found them, and so it's in the folklore. Well, that's kind of odd too.
Yeah. That's awesome. That is really cool. How far back is that? Is that like 1800s, 1900s, or
1816 is when our village was platted out, and so it would have been very early on when they were building. It was when they were making the cemetery. And it was on the back side of a cemetery right along the ridge going down to the river. That is the exact same one that comes through our farm. It winds around.
Wow, really?
And so they said they saw it in the stratigraphy kind of. Like they weren't dug up. They found them on the edge.
Can you break down what that word means for those that might not be familiar with it?
Oh, stratigraphy?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just on the outer edge of, the dirt where the dirt has come away, and they saw the bones sticking out of that.
Oh, no way. Wow.
So the stratigraphy is just like layers of dirt. Yeah, and of course I am interested in our local history, so I've tried to find out anything I could, and I thought, there's some scholars that do talk about a giant race that seems very plausible, but to me, wow, kind of would be this too.
Yeah, no, it's so weird, especially since you're saying it's the same river.
Yeah.
Was it written down what happened to the bones? Was it a thing where like they got shipped off to the Smithsonian, or we just might not know?
No, I think it was so long ago they probably in the 1820s.
Oh, true.
And so they would have just written it down, and it's just in the folklore, of our village. I just find that very interesting, and it wasn't just one; it was like 2 or 3. I'm pretty sure.
That is so cool, and it's a really fun connection. I don't know I think I might have mentioned this once or twice, but we have a situation like that out here in Iowa, which is similar, where there's the Des Moines River that flows from let's say northwest of Des Moines, then it goes down to southeast Iowa. And there's down there in the southeast, there's Van Buren County, which is very, very active with Bigfoot and Dogman over the years. But I had an individual reach out to me that just north of that, along the river, around Dowds, Iowa, in the 40s, there would be all these sightings of giants, actual giants, and they would actually call them the Yehudis. This older gentleman reached out to me and said, yeah, my grandparents in the 40s, they would have all these giants seen around the river. And man, it almost makes you wonder if there's some kind of connection there, between.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
It's really weird.
It's interesting. And then if you think about in the 1820s, this area was just it was frontier. So it was all wooded. So it would make sense.
That's awesome, man.
Interesting.
And for things you've experienced, how long ago would you say the last thing you experienced that would have been something probably related to the Bigfoot on the property?
I know that my last one was 2023. I want to say like November of 2023. I had something down for 2024, but I think that's when I went back there and all the tree structures were gone. Yeah. So I don't know.
Interesting.
Oh, wait a minute. Something. Yeah. I don't know. I almost hesitate to bring this up, but in autumn of 2024, I was outside with the dogs, and I thought my husband was in the field. These are farm fields, and I thought his tractor had broken down because I saw a light back there. And I thought, he's walking around. And then he comes driving up. It wasn't him. And it was somebody that had a flashlight. It was the weirdest thing I've ever seen in my life, just slowly going along the river, but not in the river. I don't know. And then my husband teases me and said, maybe it was Bigfoot. I'm like, well, yeah, that'd be great if it was, but I don't. I have no idea.
It is
probably more.
It is one of those subjects where it can to some people be funny or creepy, but at the end of the day, it is a thing where a lot of witnesses, like if they have Bigfoot activity, they may also report, well, we've been seeing these light orbs and things. So that might be a thing to be aware of as well. Who knows?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And then he went back there in the tractor and, shine these huge halogen lights into the woods. And I heard him yell, hey, I thought, oop, there's somebody back there, but it wasn't. He just thought he was yelling. So he didn't see anybody. So it was just weird.
And I don't, he hasn't had any experiences on the property, has he?
Not that he said.
No, he just said at one point he heard a sound back there that he had never heard before.
Oh, that's right.
But yeah.
Ah, gotcha. Okay. So,
but he's usually in a tractor and, and he wants to believe he's just never experienced anything.
I got it. Yep.
And stuff like that.
I got you. Well, we'll see what happens with that. Yeah. But that's very interesting. But yeah, you never know.
And, yeah. And I should also say, we've been living here for 25 years. So we've been here a long time. So we know the sounds, we know all of that. And it's just these few times that stand out. So it's not like, oh, we moved in last month and we're trying to make something of it. We've been here a long time, so we know what's here and what sounds are.
Oh yeah, absolutely. You're very, very familiar with the land that you live on, especially after living there for so long. But
yes, and me walking it all the time.
Absolutely, absolutely. Judy and Grace, I just want to say thank you for coming on to share what you guys are experiencing on your property. It kind of sounds like there could be, this, it's probably not just going to go away. There'll probably be other stuff too. But I just want to make sure you were able to, go through everything that you had set aside on your notes.
I think we have, and we just appreciate being able to share our experiences.
Yes, thank you so much.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And definitely keep me in mind if anything else happens on your property. I'd love to hear about it. You can always send me an email or anything. And if you ever are able to, hear anything from your neighbors, I'd be interested in that as well. But, yeah.
Absolutely. Yes, we definitely will. And I'm a big fan of your podcast. It's my favorite one. So thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you to all those that you have on.
Awesome. It's been great talking to you. And thanks so much for coming on, guys.
Okay. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Just wanted to take a minute to say thank you for listening to this episode of the Bigfoot Society podcast. Judy and Grace's story is one of those rare encounters that gives you chills, not just because of what they saw, but because of how close it all came to home. From the silent ridge to the wild rose bushes, from the terrified German shepherd to a mysterious history buried in the land, this one sticks with you. So huge thanks to Judy and Grace for their honesty, vulnerability, and courage in sharing what happened. And if you enjoyed this conversation, please subscribe to the channel on YouTube, hit the bell icon so you don't miss any new episodes, and share this one with a friend who's into Bigfoot, Ohio folklore, or just a really good story. If you're listening to us on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, make sure you're following the show. And if you'd be willing to leave a review, it helps more people find stories like this. And hey, if you or someone you know has had a Bigfoot encounter, especially in Ohio, I'd love to hear from you. Please shoot me an email at bigfootsociety@gmail.com and let's talk. And don't forget, Sasquatch Summerfest is coming up July 11th through the 12th at Green Waters Park in Oak Ridge, Oregon. Bigfoot Society listeners can grab a 2-day pass for the price of 1-day admission with code BFS at checkout. Tickets are available now at www.sasquatchsummerfest.com. Thanks again for being part of the Bigfoot Society. Until next time, keep your eyes open, trust your gut, and never stop asking what else might be out there, and see you in the woods.
All right, that tree right there is the one that was showering down the walnuts. At least that's where it was coming from. What the? Could you hear that? Hello? It's funny how this place seems more menacing when the sun begins to go down. What do you keep looking at over there, Abby? Stop that.